Max Fletcher stared at the message on his tablet for the fifth time, certain it was some elaborate prank. 3 months ago, he'd been a respected veterinarian. Today, he was the guy who accidentally sedated socialite Penny Grayson's prize-winning hairless cat instead of her similarly hairless and equally yappy therapy dog. The resulting scandal, helpfully hashtagged Catnapgate, had torpedoed his practice faster than you could say malpractice insurance premiums. And now this, a job offer from the Galactic Alliance. Not just any job, a position of significant importance requiring unique human expertise. The salary made his eyes water. "They'd probably want you to neuter alien gerbils," snorted his roommate Kyle from the couch, where he was perfecting the art of chip eating without looking away from his game. Or maybe it's a body-snatching situation, very to serve humans cookbook vibe. Max ran a hand through his disheveled brown hair. "I don't exactly have better options." "Fair point," Kyle said, reaching for another handful of chips. "But if you come back with an extra appendage or speaking in tongues, I'm keeping your vinyl collection." The Galactic Alliance transport that arrived the next morning wasn't the sleek, chrome affair Max had expected. It looked more like a flying shipping container with windows, piloted by a being who introduced himself as Flit, basically a 6-foot, praying mantis wearing what appeared to be a Hawaiian shirt. A human Fletcher. "Prepare for nervous system rearrangement," Flit announced cheerfully. "Excuse me?" Joke, human humor. "Ha." Flit clicked his mandibles together in what Max hoped was laughter. Nearly standard translocation. Organs remain in original configuration. Before Max could protest, the transport lurched upward, and Earth shrank beneath them at a speed that seemed to violate several laws of physics. "So," Max ventured, gripping his seat as the craft wobbled alarmingly, "what exactly does this job involve?" Flit's compound eyes swiveled toward him. "Information restricted. But know this, position relates to Vorzak species." Max felt his stomach drop, and not just from Flit's questionable piloting. Everyone knew about the Vorzak's 9-foot predatory aliens with naturally occurring biological armor and temperaments that made Wolverines look cuddly. First contact with them had nearly sparked an interstellar war when they'd interpreted a human diplomat's smile as a threat display. The only reason Earth wasn't a smoking crater was because a different diplomat had accidentally performed what turned out to be the Vorzak equivalent of a surrender gesture while trying to fix his wedgie. "The Vorzaks?" Max squeaked. What could they possibly want with a disgraced veterinarian? Flit clicked his mandibles again. "Not what Vorzaks want with you. What Vorzaks want you with." Max decided it might be better not to know until arrival. At least that way, when the Vorzaks inevitably ate him, he'd die confused rather than terrified. The space station cradle rock resembled nothing so much as a giant metal sea urchin, bristling with spines and domes that glowed faintly against the starry backdrop. As Flit docked their transport with impressive precision for someone with exoskeletal hands, Max pressed his face against the viewport like a kid at an aquarium. "We arrive," announced Flit unnecessarily. "Do not vomit during decontamination. Very bad for filters." 3 invasive scans and 1 very undignified decontamination shower later, Max found himself being marched down a curved corridor by a security detail of robots that looked like someone had stuck machine guns on beach balls. They deposited him unceremoniously in what appeared to be a conference room, where a tall, silver-haired woman sat reviewing something on a holographic display. "Max Fletcher," she said without looking up, 34 Earth years old. Former owner of Fletcher Family Veterinary Clinic. Academic records respectable, but not outstanding. Incident reports. Here she paused, eyes scanning something Max couldn't see, more numerous than I'd prefer. "In my defense," Max started, "that ferret was asking for it." The woman finally looked at him, one eyebrow arched so high it threatened to leave her face entirely. "I'm Commander Pella Thorne, Civilian Director of Project Hatchling. Whether you remain here longer than the next 5 minutes depends entirely on your answer to one question." She stood up, pressing her palms flat against the table as she leaned toward him. "How do you feel about babies?" Max blinked. "Babies? Like human babies?" "No," she said, Pressing a button on her wrist communicator, a wall panel slid open. Like these babies, Max approached the window cautiously. Beyond the transparent barrier was a large, dimly lit room filled with what looked like oversized terrariums. Inside each one was, "Holy Mother are those Vorzak hatchlings?" he gasped. "Best." In each habitat, small versions of the galaxy's apex predators curled and slithered. Though only the size of large house cats, they already sported the beginnings of the signature Vorzak armor plates along their spines. Their eyes, all 6 of them, glowed faintly in the low light. 23 of them, Commander Thorne confirmed, and we need human caretakers. Max turned to face her. "Why humans? Why me? Aren't there, adult Vorzaks who could do this?" "That's the trillion credit question," came a new voice. A dark-skinned man with close-cropped hair and the build of someone who regularly bench-pressed refrigerators strode into the room. Dex Rodriguez, head of hatchling security. He extended a hand the size of a dinner plate. As Max shook it, trying not to wince at the crushing grip, Commander Thorne continued. "The Vorzaks are remarkable in many ways, Mr. Fletcher. One of those ways is their total inability to care for their own young." "Can't or won't?" Max asked. "Physiologically can't," Rodriguez clarified. "Adult Vorzaks produce pheromones that trigger aggression responses in hatchlings. Put them together, and the babies literally try to kill the adults and vice versa. So how do they reproduce at all without going extinct?" Commander Thorne gestured to the viewing window. "Historically, they used lesser predators on their homeworld as surrogate caretakers. Those species are now extinct due to overhunting by adult Vorzaks. When they joined the Galactic Alliance and gained access to other worlds, they discovered something remarkable: human pheromones have a calming effect on their young." Basically, Rodriguez added with a grin that suggested he found the whole situation darkly hilarious, "You smell like mum to them." Max stared at the alien infants. One had just caught what looked like a space rat in its terrarium and was systematically dismembering it with disturbing precision for something so young. "So my job would be feeding, socializing, basic care." Thorne tapped her wrist computer, bringing up a roster. "You'd join a team of 15 human caretakers, supervising the development of these hatchlings until they reach juvenile stage and can be safely returned to Vorzak society." "And if I say no?" Rodriguez's smile widened. "Memory wipe and back to Earth. Standard procedure for classified operations." "And if I say yes?" "Triple your former salary, full Galactic Alliance healthcare, which, trust me, you'll need, and the honor of preventing an interstellar diplomatic crisis," Thorne said smoothly. "The Vorzaks are vital military allies. Without this program, their birth rates would collapse." Max looked back at the hatchlings. One had pressed all 6 eyes against the glass of its terrarium, staring directly at him. He had the distinct impression it was calculating how long it would take to eat his face. "When do I start?" he heard himself say. Rodriguez clapped him on the shoulder hard enough to make his knees buckle. "That's the spirit. First feeding's in an hour. Hope you're not attached to your fingers." "The trick is to never show fear," explained Lena Okafor, the senior hatchling caretaker, as she demonstrated how to hold a feeding tube. "They can literally smell your anxiety, and they respect nothing but confidence." Max eyed the squirming Vorzak hatchling in its handling chamber. It was gnashing its 4 rows of teeth at him in what he sincerely hoped was a friendly manner. "Right," he said. "No fear. Just me, hand-feeding the offspring of the species that decimated the Arcturian defense fleet, because someone told them they had odd-looking head crests." Lena smiled, the scars on her right cheek crinkling. "You'll get used to them. I've been here since the program started. This is my 3rd clutch." "Is that how you got the—" Max gestured vaguely at her face. "Oh, these?" She touched the scars. "Cooking accident, actually. The kids are dangerous, but they're more like misunderstood toddlers with switchblades than actual monsters." As if to contradict her, the hatchling in the chamber made a sound like metal being torn apart and lunged at the glass. "That's Vinny," Lena said fondly. "He's our drama queen." Over the next week, Max was introduced to the rest of the human caretaker team. There was Dr. Moshe Cohen, the xenobiologist who spoke about Vorzak digestive systems with unsettling enthusiasm, the twins Aiko and Takashi Yamamoto, and who developed an elaborate scoring system for hatchling behavioral traits, and Jian Wei, whose zen-like calm remained unbroken even when a hatchling named Toothy tried to eat his shoelaces with his feet still in his shoes. And then there was Dex Rodriguez, who seemed to take special pleasure in assigning Max to the most troublesome hatchlings. Fletcher. "You're on cleanup duty with Ripper today," Rodriguez announced during the morning briefing, referring to the largest and most aggressive of the clutch. She shredded another enrichment toy. "Again?" Max groaned. "That's the third this week. Can't we give her something sturdier?" "Like what?" Rodriguez challenged. "She chewed through aerospace-grade titanium yesterday." "What about that rubber compound they use for deep space station seals?" "The stuff that self-heals?" Rodriguez stared at him. "That's actually not a bad idea." Max felt a small burst of satisfaction, which was immediately crushed when Rodriguez added, "You can test it out personally in the handling chamber." Later, as Max cautiously entered Ripper's habitat wearing what amounted to a glorified bite suit, he found himself wondering what exactly it was about humans that made them uniquely suited to this job. "Easy, girl," he murmured as the hatchling's sensory appendages twitched in his direction. "I've got a new toy for you." To his surprise, Ripper approached more curiously than aggressively, her primary eyes blinking in a pattern that Dr. Cohen had explained indicated interest rather than hunting behavior. When Max cautiously extended the prototype toy, a ball made of the flexible seal material, she took it gently in her front claws and immediately began testing its durability with methodical pokes. Max said. "You're not so bad, are you?" The moment was interrupted by blaring alarms. Red emergency lights began flashing throughout the habitat zone. "Attention all personnel," boomed the station's AI. "Containment breach in Sector 5. Hatchling loose in station corridors." Max's blood ran cold. He checked Ripper's tracker implant on his wrist display, still safely in her habitat. But the display showed that one signature labeled BT was moving rapidly through the station's service ducts. Rodriguez's voice crackled over Max's communicator. "Fletcher, get to Corridor C immediately. The little monster is heading for the mess hall." Max sprinted through the station, nearly colliding with panicked technicians evacuating in the opposite direction. When he reached the mess hall, he found absolute chaos, tables overturned, food dispensers smashed, and in the center of it all, Rodriguez attempting to corner a hissing bitey with an energy net. "Distracted," Rodriguez shouted when he spotted Max. "I need a clear shot." Max looked around desperately, grabbing the first thing he could reach, a container of the synthetic protein goop that made up most of the station's food stores. He popped the lid, and the smell hit him like a slap. Even to his human nose, it was revolting. "Hey, Bitey," he called, waving the container. "Snack time." All 6 of Bitey's eyes swiveled toward him. The hatchling chittered, sensory appendages waving frantically as it caught the scent. To Max's relief, it began moving toward him, momentarily forgetting about Rodriguez. "That's it," Max coaxed. "You know you want the disgusting space porridge." Just as Bitey came within range, Rodriguez fired the energy net. It enveloped the hatchling, contracting gently but firmly around its thrashing form. "Got you, you little terror," Rodriguez muttered, approaching cautiously. Max knelt beside the captured hatchling. Why did it escape? The habitats are supposed to be escape-proof. Rodriguez's expression darkened. "They are." "It was just someone left the service hatch unlocked during maintenance. Could have been a simple mistake, but this is the 3rd accident this month. I'm starting to think it's not coincidence." Max looked down at Bitey, who had given up struggling and was now making a sound that might have been the Vorzak equivalent of a sulky teenage sigh. "Who would want to sabotage the program?" Max asked. "No idea," Rodriguez admitted. "But whoever it is, they clearly don't understand what's at stake." He fixed Max with an uncharacteristically serious look. Do you know the real reason Vorzaks trust humans with their young? Because we smell right? Partly, Rodriguez said, helping Max to his feet. But mostly because we're the only species in the Galactic Alliance too stupid to be properly terrified of them. Attention all personnel. Vorzak diplomatic vessel docking in 15 minutes. All non-essential staff are to remain in quarters. Hatchling caretakers report to reception bay 12 immediately. Max nearly choked on his breakfast as the announcement echoed through the station. He looked across the table at Lena, who was already gathering her things. Did you know about this? He sputtered. Quarterly inspection, she said with forced casualness that didn't reach her eyes. Ambassador G. Krath makes surprise visits to ensure the program is running properly. G. Krath? As in High Commander G. Krath? The one who supposedly wears a necklace made from the vertebrae of his enemies. Those aren't vertebrae, Lena corrected. They're ceremonial honor tokens. At least, that's what the cultural briefing says. Honestly, they do look an awful lot like spine bits. When they reached reception bay 12, they found Commander Thorne pacing nervously while Rodriguez barked orders at a team of maintenance bots frantically polishing every surface. Fletcher. Okafor. About time, Rodriguez snapped. Status report on habitats 7 through 12. All hatchlings accounted for and in optimal health, Lena reported. Enrichment activities completed on schedule. Max nodded. Feeding logs updated. New toys distributed according to individual preference profiles. Commander Thorne approached, straightening her already impeccable uniform. Remember the protocol. No sudden movements, no direct eye contact with any Vorzak for more than 2 seconds. And for the love of all that's holy, no teeth showing when you smile. Teeth are a challenge display, Max recited. Got it. The docking bay doors hissed open with a dramatic release of steam that Max strongly suspected was theatrical rather than functional. Through the mist stepped 3 Vorzaks. Max had seen plenty of footage, but nothing prepared him for the reality. The central figure, presumably Ambassador G. Krath, stood nearly 10 feet tall, armor plates shifting with an oily iridescence under the bay lights. 4 massive arms ended in claws that looked capable of shredding battleship hull plating. The ambassador's 6 eyes, arranged in a cluster atop its elongated head, glowed with a cold intelligence. Greetings, Ambassador, Commander Thorne said, performing the traditional Vorzak salute, a complicated gesture involving both hands that had taken Max 3 days to master. The ambassador responded with a sound like grinding gears, which Max's translator earpiece rendered in a flat monotone. Station Commander. We inspect offspring now. Of course, Thorne replied smoothly. If you'll follow me to the nursery level. Negative. Caretakers lead. You remain. All eyes turned to the human caretakers. Lena stepped forward with practiced ease. We would be honored to escort you. Ambassador. As they led the Vorzak delegation toward the nursery level, Max felt sweat trickling down his back. The ambassador's guards flanked the group, their breathing apparatus making wet, sucking sounds that did nothing for Max's nerves. The hatchlings have shown excellent progress, Lena was saying, filling the awkward silence. Cognitive assessment scores are 12% above previous clutch averages. Growth rates acceptable? The ambassador inquired. Above projected metrics, Max found himself saying, particularly in armor development. Ripper ER, hatchling 17, has already developed secondary plate formations. The ambassador's head swiveled toward him with alarming speed. You, human Fletcher. New to program. It wasn't a question. But Max nodded anyway. Yes, Ambassador. 6 weeks now. Previous occupation? I was a veterinarian. An animal doctor, Max clarified, unsure if the term would translate. The ambassador made a sound that Max's translator couldn't interpret. The guards shifted uneasily. Did I say something wrong? Max whispered to Lena. Before she could answer, the ambassador spoke again. You compare noble Vorzak to lesser beasts. Max felt his life flash before his eyes. No, not at all. I meant I have experience caring for complex biological needs. Each species requires specific, tailored care, like the specialized calcium supplements we've been adding to Habitat 8's diet to support advanced armor growth. There was a tense silence. Then the ambassador made another untranslatable sound, this one longer and more complex. The human understands. The translator finally produced, acceptable. As they continued toward the nursery, the ambassador fell into step beside Max, human Fletcher. Rumors disturb counsel, speak truth of conditions here. Max glanced at Lena, who gave him a subtle nod. The conditions are excellent. Ambassador, the hatchlings are thriving. We've had some minor incidents. Incidents? The ambassador's armor plates flared, a warning sign Max recognized from his training. Routine developmental challenges, he backpedaled quickly. Nothing concerning. One hatchling figured out how to open their enrichment puzzle too quickly, so we had to design more complex ones. The ambassador seemed to consider this, a clever offspring valuable to warrior caste. They reached the nursery observation deck, where the ambassador's guards took positions at the entrance while the ambassador moved directly to the viewing window. Beyond it, the hatchlings sensed the adult Vorzak presence and began displaying agitated behavior, hissing and rattling their developing armor plates. Normal response, Lena assured the ambassador. The biological aversion instinct is developing right on schedule. The ambassador was silent for a long moment, watching the hatchlings. Finally, it turned to face them. Information share now. Radical faction grows on homeworld. Traditionalists reject alien caretakers, seek end to program. Max exchanged alarmed glances with Lena, but without the program. Species survival compromised, the ambassador confirmed, yet tradition-bound fools gain influence. It's a teeming of cases. The council divided. What can we do? Lena asked. Vigilance. Proof of program success critical. The ambassador's primary eyes fixed on Max, human Fletcher. Your observations fresh, prepare report of methods. Detailed. Council requires evidence of human compatibility. Can stay. I'd be honored, Max said, attempting a respectful head tilt that he immediately feared might have come across as sarcastic. If the ambassador noticed, it gave no indication. Inspection continues. Show habitats now. As they escorted the ambassador through the nursery proper, Max couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. If traditionalist Vorzaks wanted to end the program, how far would they go to ensure its failure? The day after the ambassador's visit, everything started breaking. First, the environmental controls in habitat blocker malfunctioned, sending temperatures soaring to levels that would have been lethal to the hatchlings if Max hadn't noticed the rapidly rising readings during morning checks. Then the automated feeding systems in Block C dispensed triple the normal protein ration, triggering aggressive feeding frenzies that took hours to calm. This is deliberate, Rodriguez declared during the emergency staff meeting, slamming his fist on the table hard enough to make the holo projector jump. 3 critical systems failing within 6 hours, not a chance it's coincidence. Commander Thorne's expression was grim. Security sweeps have found nothing. No unauthorized personnel, no suspicious access records. What about the maintenance logs? Max suggested, who's had access to the system controls recently? Thorne pulled up the records on the holo display. Standard maintenance rotation. Nothing unusual except, she paused, frowning. There was an unscheduled diagnostic run on the central processor last night. By whom? Rodriguez demanded. The log says Dr. Cohen authorized it. All eyes turned to the xenobiologist, who looked genuinely surprised. I did no such thing. I was in my quarters all night, reviewing developmental data. Can anyone confirm that? Rodriguez asked. Before Cohen could answer, the station's emergency klaxons blared to life. Warning, life support system failure in nursery block B, oxygen levels dropping. Emergency protocols engaged. The room erupted into action. Max was running before he even realized it, his mind focused on one thought. Ripper was in block B. He reached the nursery level to find chaos. Emergency lights cast everything in a red glow. The security doors to block B had automatically sealed. But through the observation window, Max could see hatchlings thrashing in distress as emergency oxygen masks dropped from ceiling compartments designed for human caretakers, useless for Vorzak physiology. "We need to get in there," Max shouted as Lena arrived behind him. "Working on it," she replied, fingers flying over the emergency override panel. "Security lockdown is fighting me." Rodriguez barreled around the corner, followed by a security team. "Stand back," he ordered, aiming what looked like a miniature battering ram at the door's seam. "Annual override coming up." The device fired with a percussive thud, releasing a chemical compound that ate through the door's emergency seals. Rodriguez and 2 security officers forced the doors apart manually. "Oxygen masks on," he ordered as they entered. Max grabbed an emergency kit and followed, his heart pounding. Inside, the hatchlings were showing signs of oxygen deprivation. Their normally vibrant armor was dulling, movements becoming sluggish. "We need to get them to the emergency habitats," Lena shouted over the alarms, the portable containment units in the storage locker. As they worked frantically to transfer the hatchlings to the emergency units, Max noticed something strange about Ripper. Unlike the others, she wasn't just struggling for oxygen, she seemed to be having some kind of seizure. "Something's wrong with Ripper," he called to Lena. Different symptoms from the others. Max's veterinary instincts kicked in. He ran a quick diagnostic scan with his wrist unit. The readings made no sense, elevated toxin levels that shouldn't be present in a simple oxygen deprivation scenario. A memory surfaced from his training days, a similar case, different species, but similar symptoms. Without thinking twice, he grabbed a universal antitoxin injector from the emergency kit and administered it to Ripper. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then the hatchling's spasms slowed and her breathing stabilized. "How did you know?" Lena asked as they secured the last of the hatchlings in emergency transport. "I didn't. But these symptoms, they're not just from lack of oxygen. Someone introduced a toxin into their environment." Max checked the readings again. A toxin specifically designed to affect Vorzak physiology. Back in the secured conference room, Commander Thorne reviewed the evidence grimly. The saboteur knew exactly what they were doing, she concluded. The life support failure was just a cover. The real attack was the toxin. "A toxin that wouldn't affect humans," Rodriguez added, "only Vorzaks." "Someone with detailed knowledge of Vorzak biology," Max said, looking pointedly at Dr. Cohen. The xenobiologist bristled. "You can't seriously suspect me. I've dedicated my career to this program." "Which gives you the perfect knowledge and access to sabotage it," Rodriguez countered. "If I wanted to harm the hatchlings, I've had countless opportunities over the years," Cohen protested. "Why would I wait until now?" Max had been reviewing the toxin analysis on his tablet. Something about the molecular structure was nagging at him. "This toxin, it's not just tailored to Vorzaks. It's specifically designed to affect juvenile Vorzaks without harming adults." A heavy silence fell over the room. "Only one group would benefit from proving that humans can't safely raise Vorzak young," Commander Thorne said slowly. "The traditionalist faction the ambassador warned us about." "But how would they get access to our systems?" Lena asked. "Security protocols. These were bypassed using Dr. Cohen's credentials," Rodriguez finished. He turned to the scientist. "Have you given your access codes to anyone? Even temporarily?" Cohen's face went pale. "The new assistant, Technician Vreel. He said he needed to update the developmental tracking software." Rodriguez was already accessing security records. Technician Vreel arrived 3 weeks ago, transferred from, wait. These transfer orders have been altered. He looked up grimly. "We have a spy, and I think I know where to find him," Max said. "If I'm right about this toxin, he'll need to be monitoring its effects from somewhere with access to the hatchling biometric feeds." The auxiliary monitoring station. Lena realized. It's isolated, minimal staff during third shift. Rodriguez was already moving. "Security team to auxiliary monitoring." Ow. As they raced through the station corridors. Max couldn't help but Think that if they failed, if even one hatchling died, the diplomatic fallout could trigger the interspecies war that the breeding program had been established to prevent. And all because someone couldn't accept that humans, of all species, were what Vorzak babies needed most. They found Technician Vril exactly where Max predicted, hunched over a monitoring station displaying the hatchling's vital signs. The technician turned out to be a Centaurian operative, a species known for their shape-shifting abilities and long-standing territorial disputes with the Vorzaks. "It's over," Vril Rodriguez announced. "Energy weapon trained on the imposter. Step away from the console." What followed was less the dramatic showdown Max had expected, and more an embarrassingly quick takedown as Rodriguez simply stunned the saboteur mid-villainous monologue. "Didn't even get to the good part about destroying the Vorzak bloodline," Rodriguez grumbled, securing the unconscious operative with restraints. "I think we can fill in the blanks," Max said, already working at the console to reverse the remaining effects of the sabotage. The next 24 hours passed in a blur of emergency treatments, system resets, and diplomatic communications. When Ambassador G. Krath returned with a full security detail, Max expected accusations and threats. Instead, the massive alien strode directly to the recovered hatchling's observation area and stood silent for several minutes. The offspring survive. Human intervention successful. The translator rendered G. Krath's clicking speech into flat statements that nonetheless carried weight. Evidence sufficient for counsel. "Evidence?" Commander Thorne asked. "Of human compatibility." The ambassador turned its multi-eyed gaze to Max, especially human Fletcher. Max blinked in surprise. "Me? I just did what anyone would do." "Incorrect. Did what only humans do." G. Krath's armor plates shifted in what Max had recently learned was the Vorzak equivalent of emphasis. "Face certain harm to protect young, not your own." Later, as the station slowly returned to normal operations, Max found himself in the now secured nursery, checking on Ripper. The hatchling had made a remarkable recovery and was currently attempting to dismantle her new enrichment toy with methodical determination. "She likes you," Lino observed, joining him at the observation window. "That's rare. Usually they only tolerate us as food sources." "I think there's more to them than we realize," Max replied. "During the crisis, they weren't just panicking. Some of them were trying to help each other." Rodriguez appeared behind them. His usual scowl softened slightly. "Ambassador's ship just departed. Thorne wants to see you in her office." In Commander Thorne's office, Max found not just the commander but a holographic projection of what appeared to be the Vorzak High Council chamber. "Fletcher," Thorne greeted him, unusually formal. "The council has a proposal for you." The central figure in the hologram of Vorzak, even larger than G. Krath, spoke. "Human Fletcher. Council elevates program status. New position created. Chief Interspecies Developmental Supervisor." Max looked blankly at Thorne. "Translation?" "They want you to be the program's director," she said, a hint of a smile playing at her lips. Apparently saving their hatchlings from certain death impressed them. "But I've only been here a few months," Max protested. "There are more qualified." Decision made. The council elder interrupted. "Additional information relevant. True purpose of program now shared." Max waited, confused. "Vorzak future depends on more than survival," the elder continued. "It depends on change. Hatchlings raised by humans develop differently, or adaptable." Their understanding dawned. The traditionalists, they're not just against the program because it involves aliens. They're against it because it's changing Vorzak society. "Precisely," Commander Thorne confirmed. "Each generation raised with human caretakers shows marginally increased capacity for cooperative behavior, complex problem-solving, and most controversially diplomatic rather than military solutions. You change our young," the elder stated, "change necessary for survival in galactic community. Some fear change. Wiser council members embrace it." Max thought about Ripper, working methodically to solve her puzzle toy rather than simply destroying it as her instincts might have dictated. About the hatchlings helping each other during the crisis. So the real reason Vorzaks trust humans with their young isn't just because we smell right or we're too stupid to be afraid, Max realized. It's because you want your children to learn from us. Affirmative, the elder confirmed. Humans, physically weak, technologically inferior, yet survive, adapt, cooperate despite differences, traits Vorzak require for future. Max struggled to process this revelation. The galaxy's fiercest predatory species wanted their children to be more like humans. It was either the greatest compliment humanity had ever received or the most backhanded. I accept the position, he heard himself say, but on one condition. The council chamber went silent. Commander Thorne shot him a warning look. Condition? The elder finally responded, armor plates flaring slightly. Double the program's size, Max said, in more hatchlings, more human caretakers. If this is as important as you say, let's do it properly. Another long silence. Then the elder's plates settled into what Max recognized as the Vorzak equivalent of approval. Acceptable. Expansion begins immediately. After the transmission ended, Commander Thorne stared at him. Do you realize what you just did? You negotiated with the Vorzak High Council, and won. Max shrugged. Seemed like the right thing to do. It was, she agreed. But most people would have been too intimidated to try. She smiled properly then. Maybe there's something to their theory about humans after all. Later, making his final rounds before much-needed sleep, Max paused at Ripper's habitat. The hatchling had finally dismantled her enrichment toy and was arranging the pieces in neat piles according to size and color, a behavior he'd never observed in Vorzaks before. Proud of yourself, aren't you? He said softly. Ripper looked up, all 6 eyes focusing on him with what he could have sworn was recognition. She made a soft clicking sound, not a threat display, but something almost like a greeting. As Max watched the tiny terror who might someday help reshape an entire warrior culture, he couldn't help but laugh at the cosmic absurdity of it all. Somehow, in this vast and dangerous galaxy, the universe's most feared predators had decided that humans, messy, emotional, frequently illogical humans, were exactly what their children needed most. And maybe, just maybe, they were right.